There's clearly a fierce debate amongst historians about whether America is fundamentally a liberal or a conservative country. Now, but I think if you look at several of the features of the right nation of conservative America, I think you can see that they have deep roots in the American past, roots that go, in many cases, all the way back to the founding of the Republic.
If you're a conservative, presumably it means you want to conserve something. So the interesting question is, do you want to conserve the medieval world order? Do you want to conserve the early modern world order? Do you want to conserve 1776? What does it mean to be a conservative in a country founded in liberal revolution?
Kirk particularly made a distinction between the French Revolution, which was a break with the past, a total and complete and bloody break with the past, and the American Revolution, which he called a conservative revolution.
Modern liberalism began as a protest against the so-called robber barons, the industrialists, bankers, financiers, the Andrew Carnegies and J.P. Morgans and John D. Rockefellers, who were perceived as revolutionizing American society, and revolutionizing it not in a positive sense.
So that we see emerging in the progressive era city planning, public education, public health, public welfare, all of these institutions which were designed to improve human well-being.
We have nothing to fear but fear itself, Mr. Roosevelt proclaimed in his famous first inaugural.
It really wasn't until the 30s that Franklin D. Roosevelt grasped the term, captured the term.
Through the Franklin Roosevelt administration, there were still people who said, I'm a liberal, and I'm against the sort of thing Franklin Roosevelt is doing.
Basically, the political coalition that Franklin Roosevelt made was to take progressive Republicans into the Democratic Party, both voters and politicians.
Roosevelt's liberalism was of a more emphatic kind, precisely because of the economic crisis that the country was in.
Conservatives from the beginning, when talking about the post-World War II period, were for defeating communism, not just containing it.
In the 1950s, John Kenneth Galbraith wrote a book called The Liberal Hour. And the title came from Adlai Stevenson, who made a speech, who said that the Republicans are conservatives most of the time, but when it comes to election time, they have the liberal hour, in which they pretend to be liberals.
The overwhelming accomplishment of liberalism was to invent the American middle class.
This nation, this generation, in this hour, has man's first chance to build the great society.
When the cities went up in flames because many poor black Americans were angry about the lack of progress in their economic lives, many white Democrats blamed liberals.
They want to do good things for other people with other people's money.
For 3 decades, we've sought to solve the problems of unemployment through government planning, and the more the plans fail, the more the planners plan.
What failed is the programs weren't carried out. They were overwhelmed by an economic disaster, which was the result of the war in Vietnam and the refusal to pay for it.
As we look at America, we see cities enveloped in smoke and flame. We hear sirens in the night. We see Americans dying on distant battlefields abroad.
We never took seriously that conservatives might actually take over.
Reagan was critical to conservatism because he was able to capture the idealism of conservatism, not just its sour, how much is this going to cost?
Never before in our history have Americans been called upon to face three grave threats to our very existence, any one of which could destroy us. We face a disintegrating economy, a weakened defense, and an energy policy based on the sharing of scarcity. The major issue of this campaign is the direct political, personal, and moral responsibility of Democratic Party leadership in the White House and in the Congress for this unprecedented calamity which has befallen us.
There was a baseball player once who said he's got second base so messed up nobody can play it. Today's liberals have messed up the word liberal so bad nobody wants it.
The public still believed in liberal ideals, but the word liberal had become an unsavory word.
How would you define a conservative?
Someone with money and things they're afraid to lose. That's a conservative.
I know the image of us is a bunch of people get together on New Year's and ring in the old.
The difficulty I face now in the new century is that my idea of reckless and counterproductive is exemplified by a conservatism which is not conservatism.
Let me finish. There are some who feel like that, the conditions are such that they can attack us there. My answer is bring them on. We got the force necessary to deal with the security situation. Any other questions? I'm willing to exhaust questions that I feel like I'm on a roll.
They have made a dirty word out of what a conservative is. And being a conservative isn't really a bad thing if you really know what the true meaning of being a conservative is.
I have described modern conservatism as being very confused, and I would say President Bush's administration fits that. I don't see this administration showing much of a respect for individualism, free markets, limited government, or the Constitution. The president is conservative, I suppose, in that he's a man of Christian faith. It's not Goldwater conservatism or Reagan conservatism or constitutional conservatism. I guess it's country club conservatism.
It's like having 1 foot in a bucket of cement, which is conservatism, another foot in a bucket of cement, which is liberalism, and it impedes our mobility.
Individuals have to subordinate themselves to the tribal definition. So if I'm liberal, I have to talk liberal talk, or if I'm conservative, I have to talk conservative talk.
We fight for values, and we fight for principles, rather than territory or colonies.
Our enemies are brutal, but they are no match for the United States of America, and they are no match for the men and women of the United States military. May God bless you all.